Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Donald Trump has issued a 2-week ultimatum to Vladimir Putin. Within 2 weeks, Donald Trump claims that he will know whether Vladimir Putin is tapping the United States along or not. And if so, Trump says the United States will deal with Putin's Russia a little bit differently. The Russian position, though, has changed very little. On the 24th of May, Russia staged the biggest drone and missile attack, striking targets across the Ukrainian landscape, including its heavily guarded capital, Kiev. More than 367 missiles and drones were used. 12 people were killed and more than 60 others sustained some serious injuries. At a time when peace talks have gained momentum, this increased Russian onslaught is baffling. What is equally baffling is Germany's changed stance towards the Ukraine war under their new Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Merz has now lifted all range restrictions on missiles that are sent to Ukraine to be used against Russia. But Merz has maintained what he describes as strategic silence on whether Germany will provide the Taurus missiles to Ukraine. Our next report gets more details. This chilling video, released by the Russian Defense Ministry, will give you a glimpse of the nature of attacks that Russia has been inflicting on Ukraine. A group of Ukrainian military personnel who were stationed at Shotska in the Sumy region were bombed and killed at a time when they were out on a training drill. On the night of the 24th of May, wave after wave of Russian drones and missiles flew over the Ukrainian skies. In the capital city Kiev, sirens blared. Air defense systems were activated. And although a number of drones were shot down, there were several massive explosions that lit up the night sky over Kiev. Despite the prisoners of war that have been exchanged and the hectic parleys that have been held in Istanbul in search of peace, the one thing that is becoming abundantly clear is that with each passing day, despite the fact that the Ukraine war is now in its 4th year, what is clear is that the warring nations are no closer to a solution that can bring an end to this bloodshed. In public, Donald Trump has kept up the pretense that Putin is interested in a deal. But in private, Donald Trump has admitted to his European allies that Putin is not ready for peace because he thinks that he's winning on the battlefield. So what effect will Donald Trump's ultimatum now have on Russia?
Do you believe the Russians are being disrespectful when they say that your criticisms of Putin are simply an emotional response? And do you still believe that Putin actually wants to end the war?
I can't tell you that, but I'll let you know in about 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we're going to find out very soon. We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not. And if he is, we'll respond a little bit differently, but it'll take about a week and a half, 2 weeks. We have Mr. Witkoff is here, who's doing a phenomenal job, is dealing with them very strongly right now. They seem to want to do something, but until the document is signed, I can't tell you. Nobody can. I can say this. I can say this, that I'm very disappointed at what happened a couple of nights now where people were killed in the middle of what you would call a negotiation. I'm very disappointed by that. Very, very disappointed. Yeah.
The Russian response to Donald Trump came from Dmitry Medvedev, where the former Russian president brought back the specter of the Third World War on Donald Trump's assertion that Russia is playing with fire. The next day, Russia announced the capture of 3 more Ukrainian settlements in the Kharkiv region. Taking a dig at Donald Trump, Emmanuel Macron has said that Ukraine is a test of American credibility.
I do not believe that the post-Kiev situation is a credibility issue for the Europeans. I think it is a test of credibility for the Americans. We Europeans have been consistent for 3 years. We sanction Russia, we help Ukraine, and we do not want the escalation leading to a new world war.
But the European nation that is making a clear break from the past is Germany. Leaving the prudence of Olaf Scholz behind, the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has said that no range restrictions will apply for the long-range missiles that are given to Ukraine. Germany is also giving Ukraine another $5.6 billion of military aid. But the question of giving the Ukrainians the deadly German Taurus missiles has been left in the ambit of strategic silence.
Today, our defense ministers will sign a declaration of intent on the procurement of long-range weapon systems from Ukrainian production, so-called long-range fires. There will be no range limitation. This will enable Ukraine to defend itself fully, including against military targets outside its own territory.
The Russian position on the Western nations arming Ukraine is clear. Not just the point from where the weapons are launched, but even the production facilities and the cities where the weapons have been produced would then become legitimate targets. While Donald Trump hasn't even threatened a veiled military escalation against Russia, despite Moscow intensifying its attacks on Ukraine, the new German Chancellor seems to be competing with the French President Emmanuel Macron in bolstering the defense of Ukraine. Under Donald Trump, Europe's security calculus has significantly altered. The European Union has announced a plan for rapid militarization, earmarking a staggering €800 billion to be spent by 2030 for defense. But none of this changes the reality on the ground in Ukraine at the moment. Peace talks can only succeed if they address the core security issues that Russia has repeatedly spoken about, the creeping frontiers of the NATO military alliance. In the interim, if German long-range missiles are used to strike targets deep inside Russia, as Friedrich Merz has indicated that they would, the possibility that Germany could get drawn into this war in a direct confrontation with Russia is very real. But the question is this: how much appetite does the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz have for a direct military contest with Russia? And in case this happens, will the NATO military alliance, with a non-committal Donald Trump at its head, come to his rescue? On the 2nd of March, Israel imposed a total blockade on humanitarian aid and commercial supplies to the besieged Gaza Strip, where the Palestinians are desperate and scrambling for food. Now, 2 weeks later, unilaterally ending a patchy 2-month ceasefire, Israel resumed its campaign of bombing the Gaza Strip. According to Tel Aviv, the steps were taken in order to put pressure on Hamas to release the 58 hostages that were still in custody of Hamas. The coastal Gaza enclave has been reduced to a wasteland of rubble, where more bombs are dropped daily by Israel, resulting in deaths of dozens of Palestinians. More than 54,000 Palestinians, an overwhelming majority of whom are women and children, have been killed by the Israeli military in a relentless campaign of bombings that has now gone on for over 19 long months, including close to 4,000 Palestinians who've been killed since Israel resumed its offensive on the 18th of March. In the latest proposal for ceasefire that's been put forth by Steve Witkoff, the US Special Envoy to the Middle East, which promises a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas, releasing a number of Israeli hostages, what is interesting is that Israel has not officially agreed to this agreement, while Hamas has argued that this deal does not guarantee an end to the Israeli war at all. Instead, the only thing it proposes is 60-day pause in the Israeli military offensive. Our next report gets you more details.
Israel has doubled down in its war with Gaza. First, it stopped the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza in early March, while a ceasefire was still in existence. Next, it unilaterally broke the ceasefire on the 18th of March and stepped up its offensive in Gaza. In the renewed offensive so far, 3,986 Palestinians have been killed and 11,451 others have been wounded. On the 19th of May, Israeli military launched an expanded offensive that, according to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, would take control of all areas of Gaza. Daily Israeli strikes have reduced the once picturesque coastal enclave into a dust bowl of debris. The sight of Palestinians searching through the rubble of destroyed buildings for their loved ones has tragically become an all too common sight.
At 12:30 a.m., a strike hit nearby. My father, mother, niece, and sister got killed. My brother was injured. At 12:30 a.m., stop the war. People are dying. There is no flour. We do not want anything from you. Just stop the war.
These were civilians and were sleeping at their homes. The house was destroyed due to the indiscriminate bombardment. There is no ceasefire. Israel is killing civilians. This was a 70-year-old man, a 50-year-old woman, children in pieces.
Though Israeli military claims to strike at terror targets, the sight of innocent children killed in these airstrikes narrates a completely different tale. In addition to this, 11 weeks of blockade pushed the area on the verge of catastrophic hunger. Such is the level of starvation that United Nations has described Gaza as the hungriest place on earth, with the limited number of truckloads that are coming in barely a trickle.
There is no flour, no food, no bread. There is nothing at home. Every time I go to get aid, I hold a box. 100 people crowd over me, 300. I could not take anything. I just go home. Before, the agency used to send me a message. I go like any respected person. I take it and go back home. Now there is nothing. If you are strong, you take aid. If no are not strong, you don't.
Past Wednesday marked the 600th day since the conflict between Israel and Hamas erupted in October 2023. A day prior, almost 50 people were reportedly shot and injured when thousands in desperation overran a new aid distribution center run by the United States and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in the southern city of Rafah. The foundation's own chief, Jake Wood, had resigned on Sunday, saying that the GHF could not adhere to the humanitarian principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. The United Nations has refused to cooperate with the GHF's new aid system, calling it unethical and unworkable. Hungry and desperate Gazans have been forced to fend for morsels of food, at times endangering their lives. Worse, it seems there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Reportedly, Hamas has rejected Witkoff's proposal, which included releasing 10 living hostages and the remains of dead hostages in 2 phases in exchange for a 60-day ceasefire, and the release of a number of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. Considering there were no guarantees that the temporary ceasefire would lead to a permanent end to the fighting, or that Israeli troops would withdraw to the positions they held before 2nd of March, Hamas has rejected the proposal. Hungry, desperate, frequently displaced, and barely clinging to a life of dignity. The humiliation of Gazans is a question for the world to ponder. In the words of French President Emmanuel Macron, abandoning war-torn Gaza to its own fate and giving Israel a free pass would kill the West's credibility with the rest of the world.
A total of 79 people, aged anywhere from 9 to 78, were wounded when a 53-year-old former Royal Marine ploughed his grey Ford Galaxy into a teeming crowd of Liverpool fans as they celebrated their club's record equaling 20th English Premier League title on the 26th of May. Though there were no fatalities, 7 people ended up in a hospital with serious bruises. On the 29th of May, the United Kingdom's police, following a complex and an ongoing investigation, charged the suspect with 7 sentences, including wounding with intent, causing grievous bodily harm with intent, attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent, and dangerous driving. Interestingly, the British police were rather quick to rule out terrorism as the motive for the attack, as well as confirming that the suspect was a white British man, revealing his ethnicity in an unprecedented move to quell the disinformation online. Our next report gets more details.
Hundreds of thousands of jubilant Liverpool fans had turned out, braving the torrential rain on Water Street in Liverpool city centre on Monday evening to see the Northwest English side's victory parade. Following the club's record-equalling 20th Premier League title. Minutes after the players' open-top bus had passed by, a grey Ford Galaxy swerved through the crowd, running over people and others bouncing off its bonnet, instantaneously turning scenes of joy into one of horror, bewilderment and incomprehension. As many as 79 people, including children, were injured when the car ploughed through the crowd. Reportedly, once the vehicle was brought to a halt, swarming angry fans smashed the back windows as police sought to hold them back. According to the fire services, 4 people, including 1 child, were trapped under the vehicle, which had to be lifted to remove them. A 53-year-old white British man, Paul Doyle, believed to be the driver of the car, was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, driving under the influence of drugs and dangerous driving. The father of 3 teenage children, Paul Doyle, is from the West Derby area of Liverpool. Calling it an isolated incident, the UK police quickly said that they are not treating the incident as an act of terrorism.
I know that people will understandably be concerned by what has happened tonight. What I can tell you is that we believe this to be an isolated incident, and we are not currently looking for anyone else in relation to it. The incident is not being treated as terrorism.
What is of interest and unprecedented is that within 2 hours of the car ramming incident, the UK police had confirmed the alleged driver was a 53-year-old white British man from the Merseyside. No doubt the unusual decision to share the suspect's ethnicity and nationality at the earliest stages of the investigation was done to halt the spread of misinformation online. Commending the first responders for a fantastic job, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that the whole country stands with Liverpool.
Well, scenes of joy turn to utter horror and devastation, and my thoughts and the thoughts of the whole country are with all of those that are affected, those injured, which of course includes children, their families, their friends, the whole community, Liverpool fans everywhere. And Liverpool stands together, and the whole country stands with Liverpool. I'd like to thank the first responders who did a fantastic job last night and continue to do so. There's now an ongoing investigation. I'm being kept updated, talking frequently to the Mayor, Steve Rotherham.
On Thursday, the UK police charged the accused Paul Doyle with 7 offences for allegedly ramming a car into crowds. Curiously, attempted murder and driving under the influence of drugs were not listed as charges. Though the football world stood united following the incident, the Liverpool supporters and locals were left feeling shocked, horrified and deeply saddened. Some even likened the horrific incident to terrorism, given that the people targeted were merely fans of football.
But straight away terrorism, do you know what I mean? But you don't know what's going on, you're thinking you don't know, but imagine what the hell was he thinking? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, this for Liverpool City, whatever, Everton fans or Manchester United, it doesn't matter, banter football, it's inexcusable what that person did. And mental health is a serious issue, fine, I understand that, but You can't just justify that. Like, there's kids, there's bystanders, people should not go to a parade and end up injured, hospitalised or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? You should go home, enjoy your celebrations, go to your families, go to your jobs, or whatever.
A huge volume of evidence in the form of video footage and multiple witness statements is available for the ongoing complex investigation. What's paramount is for the UK police, which has adopted a complete step change in their approach this time, to ensure that every victim gets the justice they deserve.
Africa's most populous nation, Nigeria, is battling a resurgence of jihadist unrest in recent weeks. The Islamic State of West Africa Province, or the ISWAP, and its rival, the hardline Boko Haram group, have intensified their assaults on military bases, notably in the northeastern state of Borno. In the last 2 months, at least about 10 military bases have been attacked by the jihadists. In the month of April alone, at least about 100 people, including civilians, were killed in a spate of attacks. According to the United Nations, more than 40,000 people have been killed and almost about 2 million people have been displaced in northeast Nigeria since the 2009 jihadist insurgency, the epicenter of which is the state of Borno. Why is the Nigerian military losing ground to the jihadists? Our next poll gets you more details.
The Islamist insurgency is back in the spotlight in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Though violence has fallen from its peak in 2014 when the hardline Boko Haram jihadists had seized vast territory, triggering the largest wave of displacement seeking to establish a caliphate in the region. In recent weeks, a spate of attacks by the Islamic State West Africa Province and its rival Boko Haram brought back horrific memories of 2013 and 14, when insurgents had displaced numerous villages.
We were peacefully going about our lives when suddenly insurgents invaded our town. The soldiers who were supposed to protect us fled, leaving us behind. Fearing for our lives, we had no choice but to flee.
In Marte, while sleeping, in the middle of the night, at around 1 a.m., the insurgents attacked again. Gunshots filled the air until morning. By daybreak, the town was deserted. Not a single security personnel in sight, so we ran for our safety once more.
On the 19th of May, following brutal attacks by Islamist militants in Nigeria's northeastern Borno state, at least 20,000 people fled Marte town for Dikwa, about 38 kilometers away. Marte, which is close to the border with Cameroon, was once controlled by insurgents, and residents had returned here 4 years earlier. The Borno state governor issued a warning that leaving residents to live in a camp in Dikwa town was a big threat, as it would leave young men vulnerable to recruitment by insurgents. Subsequently, hundreds of families began their return home to Marte under the protection of a military escort. Earlier this month, in a bid to boost morale of the troops, Nigeria's top military officer, Chief of Defence Staff General Christopher Musa, met troops in Borno's capital, Maiduguri, and reassured that actions had been taken to address the series of attacks.
I want to assure the people in Maiduguri, Northeast and Nigeria in general, that the armed forces of Nigeria is determined, is willing, is committed, is capable of restoring peace and security in Nigeria, and we are working towards that.
Additionally, General Musa said that the conflict in the Sahel states, including in Mali, Chad and Niger, has put a lot of pressure on Nigeria, leading to recent attacks. In terms of a solution, General Musa suggested fencing Nigeria's borders to keep out cross-border armed groups. Looking inwards, however, there are problems galore. Nigeria's vast, often inaccessible forests have become havens for jihadists and armed criminal groups. Earlier this month, President Bola Tinubu had called for the creation of a forest guards unit to flush out terrorists and criminal gangs. But a frustrated and demotivated Nigerian security force, for whom late payment of salaries is a recurring problem, the task is easier said than done.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.